What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast. We're so glad you joined us today. We have a very special interview that we want to present for you with Keith Goodrich. We're going to jump right into the theme song, and then we'll get right to the interview.
Hi, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm a ballroom dance professional, a life coach, and a peak performance expert. I'm part of a group of motivated people who are dedicated to attaining emotional mastery and unlocking our full potential. We don't believe others are responsible for how we feel. In fact, we don't believe anyone can make us feel anything. We believe in the magic of ballroom dance. It has taught us how to improve our bodies, challenge our minds, and inspire our souls. And in return, I want to share those lessons with the world. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life.
All right, we're here with Keith Goodrich today. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Keith has such a cool story, and I've only heard part of it, so I wanted to give him the opportunity to kind of give you some of his background and his story about how he got here and to where he's at today and what he's up to. He does so many amazing things that we wanted to get in and give him a chance to share with you his experience and his story. So, Keith, you are an artist of artists. I mean, I usually talk about triple threats, and it's I don't know, for those of you out there that don't know what a triple threat is, it's when you sing and you dance and you act. But you do more than that. You do so many amazing things. Anyway, I wanted to kind of give you a chance to tell your story in your words. Like, how'd you get into the arts? How did it start when you were young? Like, what inspired you to go the direction you've gone so far?
Problem. So my grandpa started me playing the violin when I was in third grade. So that's kind of how I got into music. He had played the violin. We have this really old violin in our family. And it pretty much all started with this violin that was made in 1721. And it's kind of been around in the family, and nobody played it. And my grandpa just kind of said, anyone who wants this violin needs to learn how to play. And so I started playing in third grade.
Holy cow.
And then that got me into singing, which got me into theater. I did my first play when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and
you got your parents thought, oh, hey, let's just throw him in a play.
Well, my elementary school was doing Midsummer's Night's Dream, so it was Shakespeare for children. Heavy. Yeah, it was really heavy to start out with, but I love Shakespeare, and my parents just kind of went with it. They aren't arts people at all. My dad's a football coach and a track coach and a math teacher.
What?
And
oh my gosh.
So I was the first one that was a performer. So it was very new for my family, but they were very supportive. And
that's so random.
Yeah.
Like, usually it's like, no, you're going to play football.
Yeah, exactly. Which they tried that as well, because that's just what our family did. But
sure.
When I was in high school, I did a lot of shows and theater and singing and dancing and orchestra. And
so you sang too while you were in high school?
Yeah, I started singing when I was in high school.
So what inspired you to start doing all of that? I mean, you started violin. Usually people that take up an instrument are like, okay, then
that's
they sort of hone in and go, that's what I'm going to do. Why did you start?
I think I saw how much fun my friends were having. I think I saw that they were like really involved, and I love being involved, and I love people. And
sure.
There's a lot of people in choir, and there's a lot of people in theater.
Yeah.
And my school was really cool that there was a lot of crossover. People did a lot of different things. You could do student government and be on the football team and do a play, or you could do orchestra and be a cheerleader.
Yeah. Some high schools, like the high school I went to, was a little more like, if you're going to play football, that's what you do. You know? And the I guess the leaders of each of those organizations or clubs were like, no, if you're doing my thing, you just do my thing, you know.
Which is such a limiting way to be, but
it's crazy. Yeah, that's weird. And so, you obviously found that you had some talent in singing as well, because you said you were in choir.
Yeah. Then I moved. So then I went to Dixie University.
Okay.
I got my degree in music education at Dixie, and that wasn't my first pick of college, but it was the best pick for me, because at Dixie I could do both the orchestras, the Dixie University Symphony Orchestra, the chamber orchestra, then both their choirs, and a show choir there that's called Raging Red, that is kind of a recruitment tool and a leadership team for their school, and they travel and do tours. And the men's choir, I got to start the men's choir while I was down there, and I was able to perform almost on a weekly basis at Dixie University in some way, singing, dancing. I was also in the dance company while I was there.
Oh my gosh!
I was a dance student of Professor Lille, and
wow.
Yeah, so I was always performing, and it got me on the stage.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of experience in a lot of different areas of performance.
Did you start dance when you were in high school or not till college?
High school was, so I took Miss P's social dance class.
Nice.
And then I took it again, so I took it twice, and that kind of got me into dancing.
So you actually started with ballroom?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, jeez.
I love ballroom.
And you didn't get the bug. Usually if you start with ballroom, it's like, okay, next thing you know,
Is ballroom, yeah.
you'd been a competitor. We'd have seen you here at our studio.
Yeah, St. George is a little smaller.
Right,
so
right. Okay.
You just kind of go where you can while you're down there.
Sure. So you're originally from St. George? Then?
Yeah, this
Okay.
was all down in St. George.
I see. So was there a moment where you thought, yeah, this is where I'm going to make a career for myself, being in the arts? Like, is there a time something happened, something that sort of just was like, okay, yeah, this is
what I want to do with my life. Well, I always knew I was going to be a teacher.
Okay.
I'm a teacher right now. I teach middle school choir and orchestra, and then I choreograph for middle schools and high schools in the area. And I've always just loved teaching. It's something my dad does, and I have a gift for teaching. I feel like I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
When I was 13, I was going to the National FFA convention in Kentucky, and my dad took me to. I know, it's random.
FFA.
I did FFA too.
Is there anything you didn't do in high school?
I didn't play football.
You didn't play football. Okay.
But my dad took me to a Broadway show. We saw Lion King in Kentucky when I was 13 years old. I know. And I was just sitting there, and I just thought, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do with my life.
What a
'Cause
show, too.
If I can make other people feel like I'm feeling right now,
Yeah.
that's where it's at.
That's cool. Lion King. That's quite the inspiration.
Yeah.
I find that so often, especially with the dancers I've worked with, and especially the people in the arts that I get to work with on a regular basis, is there's this one moment where you watch and you go, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do that. Like, and you just know, that that's the direction you're gonna go. Do you feel like that? I mean, you sing, you dance, you play an instrument, you act. You have all these talents, and you're a teacher as well. And you came and worked with one of our groups over the summer, and you are an excellent teacher. I mean, like, it was just so fun to watch you handle and move the group. It's very clear why you've had so much success there. But is there one of those that you feel like is more your thing than the other? Or
I thought you were going to ask this on the way down, so I actually thought about it on the way down.
Okay.
I've been playing the violin the longest.
Okay.
And so I have, like, that's always going to be, like, in my heart, is the violin and orchestra.
Yeah.
And I love dancing. I think that's the most fun.
Right.
It's so fun to be able to, like, use your body and tell a story. And but I think singing is kind of where it's at for me, because that's kind of music, and then also words and lyrics can be so powerful, and then you put music behind them, and I think that's where I felt the most in my life, and I've seen that in other people's lives as well. Like, songs can really move people.
Right.
And so I love singing, and I'm going to start my master's degree this fall at the University of Utah. I'm going to be a vocal performance major, and I'm stoked to get that degree and to have all those experiences. I have no idea what's coming for me, but I'm just excited.
Wow. And you get to do that, right, when you're on stage. You've oh gosh, there's so many things I want to ask you about. So you were talking about your violin and how that you've played it for a long time. You got to play with Noteworthy at BYU.
Yeah, I did.
And there's some cool videos. So those of you that are out there, go look at the video on YouTube. It's easy to find if you just type in Keith Goodrich. He'll pop up right away, especially if you type in Noteworthy with them. But how was that experience? I mean, how did you get in? How did you even get connected to that? That's so random.
It's all, so these connections just happen by being in the right place at the right time, or just knowing someone. And that's why when people ask you to do something, you just say yes, because you never know where that's going to go next. And
right, exactly.
I was doing a show at the Health Center Theater when I was back in West Valley, and one of the actors in that show was working with Noteworthy, and he just said, hey, we're going to make a video, and I arranged this song, and you play the violin, and it's kind of a Irishy Celtic song, and you look like that, so do you want to play with us? And I just said, yeah, and I learned the music and showed up, and it was a fantastic experience. It was a ton of fun, and the girls were great, and the location was really fun.
Yeah. It was so cool. I mean, it's such a cool video and a beautiful song. Violin, probably my listeners don't know this, but violin is probably my favorite instrument. Like, if I get to choose, I will choose to listen to the violin and listen to music where that's a primary sound. But How cool! What a cool experience. You mentioned this philosophy. I was going to actually bring it up later, but we'll just jump into it now since you just mentioned it. You taught to our kids in our camp that we did this summer, and you just mentioned it now that one of your philosophies is to always say yes when you get asked to do something,
unless it's illegal or immoral.
Okay, all right. So we got those two out of the way.
You can always say yes.
But tell me about where you got the philosophy, why you follow it, like how it is that you.
Of course. So while I was at Dixie University, I met, or one of my most influential professors was Marilee Webb.
Okay.
And I got to work with her in choirs, and then she was also my piano teacher, and then she was the director of this group, Raging Red, that I was involved with. And one of her things is you just say yes when, someone offers you an opportunity, and maybe it's outside your realm of what you do or your comfort zone, you still just say yes. And that's what actually got me moved up to Salt Lake. I left St. George. I thought I was going to stay down there and teach down there. And she said, why don't you come up here and student teach with Kelly DeHaan at West Jordan High School? And I just said yes. And then that got me, Kelly introduced me into Hale Center Theater. And I love doing shows there and working with those people. And then that association introduced me to Ramsey Stoker with Defying Gravity Aerial Arts, and I've been doing aerialist work with them. And so it's this chain reaction where if I had said no, I wouldn't have had any of these experiences. So something that I like to teach my students is when people approach you and they want you to teach a class or sing at a picnic or an event or do something, and you never know, a lot of times people try to say, like, oh, I'm too busy, find a way to make it work, and then say yes, because you never know what's going to come out of that experience.
Right.
And not all of the experiences that I've said yes to have led to something. Some of them are just, you just go and you show up and you do your thing and you leave, and you're either glad that you went or you wish you wouldn't have gone.
Right.
But I've never been sorry that I've said yes to something. I've always been happy, and it's really made my life awesome.
Well, you have some really amazing things on your resume. I didn't realize you played the piano too. So.
No, I'm a horrible pianist.
Okay.
I'm the worst choir teacher in the world because I can't play the piano.
Oh, jeez.
I can do like the warm-ups and scales and things, but I was a sorry piano student.
Well, I think the Grammy Foundation that you got nominated for Music Educator of the Award probably thought otherwise than you being the worst choir teacher. So tell me about that, and tell our listeners a little bit about what it was like to be nominated for an award like that and be involved in it.
It was very humbling because it was my second year teaching, and so I was nominated, and I got a notification saying that I was nominated, and they wanted to hear a little bit more about me, and they did a video interview, and then they asked me to submit some videos of me teaching and my concerts, and they interviewed some of my students and colleagues, and I just kept kind of progressing. I just kept getting notifications that I've made it to the next round, and then I had made it to the next round, and I made it to the semifinals.
That's so cool.
I think it was the top 15, and they eventually weeded me out, I think, because they realized this guy's just a second-year teacher, and all of the teachers that were, in the finals were these wonderful people that had like dedicated their lives to teaching choir, and I was like, give it to them. They deserve it.
Well, obviously you're doing something right over at your school, and you had mentioned to me that you have a very large program, so something like 400 some students in your choir program.
Yeah.
That's huge. That is a huge program, and I know a lot of the kids that I talk to, obviously, I have a lot of dancers, they say, oh yeah, we have to do choir, and so like the typical response from most kids, oh, I have to do choir, it's an elective, I don't want to do it. But I mean, with a response like you have, you must be doing something really great, because to have that kind of response and that kind of attendance. It's a fun class. It's a fun class.
Yeah, okay. I try to make it enjoyable. I try to make it so that everyone's happy in the class. Yeah. And I get a lot of kids that join it because they think it's an easy A, which it is. That's an easy A, because I want you to just show up and participate.
Sure.
But choir, I teach choir and orchestra, but those are just a vehicle to teach people. I'm teaching people, and hopefully I'm helping them to become better people, because people that have something they're passionate about, like music, tend to be more productive members of society and better people.
Right. We found that same thing as well with dance, and it's just, once they find that passion, they start to dig in and figure out how they can share that passion, and that in itself is probably how we're going to change the world as an overall whole. Is we've got to be able to influence somebody's life, and hopefully they'll go and do the same. You know, I love that idea and that concept of just being able to help one person, and it's teachers like you that are out there making this massive difference, changing multiple people's lives, and for all of the people that are out there, if you could just change one person's life, just one, every year, the results are staggering if they continue to do the same. And so if you get like 10 every year, what we figured out by doing the math on it is that if you change 10 people's lives in a year, and they change 10 people's lives in a year, in less than 10 years, you've actually touched the entire population of the world.
Really?
It's like over 7 billion people that you affect. And that's only if you've touched 10 people's lives. And for you have 400 students, and maybe not, and I know how it is, maybe not all of them are affected by us as teachers, but gosh, I mean, that's such a cool thing that you can do, because a lot of them are going to come away from, and more than 10 for you easily, are going to come away and say, man, he changed my life. And how cool is that? Because within a couple generations, we'll have affected the world. And so that's pretty cool that you do that. And I know from my kids that you got to work with this summer, I did a poll, I did a survey at the end of the week and asked them what some of their favorite things that we did. And I felt like, gosh, you got so many votes.
Oh, wow.
They loved you. They were like, this was great. We loved this.
They were great kids.
And so what a great teacher you are, and it was really fun watching you. What is it that you love about teaching? Like, what's your, you said it called to you and you're like, I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you love about teaching?
Well, the reason I became a music teacher is because I love music. And I mean, I get to go to work every day and I learn and teach music. It's just in me and around me, and
right.
It's just there. And every class I get a new set of songs and new music. So being able to just be exposed to so much wonderful music is just an awesome gift.
Yeah.
But then the kids are so amazing, and seeing the kids change, like, oh man, I had some kids, they show up and they're so bad and they're horrible singers, and I just think, they're going to get it eventually, and some get it faster and some take a little bit longer, but seeing them change and just open up and become these wonderful little people is so awesome. I mean, I get them as 7th graders.
Sure.
And, some 7th graders are pretty comfortable with themselves, and then some are just, they're scared to be in a new school, and they're quiet, and they've never done music before, and they don't know anything. And then to see them leave as 9th graders, and they have confidence, and they can talk to you, and they can look at you in the eyes when they talk to you, and they've gone through some hard things, they've gone through some good things, they've had some great times, and to see that change and to see them grow and develop is the best thing. And the most wonderful thing is to watch a student really find their voice.
Yeah.
I don't see it in all of my students, but most of them, or if I'm lucky, I'll get to witness a moment where, they're auditioning for a solo or they're singing in a song, and you can just see it in their faces, and they're just like, wow, like this is coming from me, and they find their voice, and then they're not afraid to sing anymore, and they sing loud, and they're happy to participate and to show up, and that's been the greatest gift that my kids have given me is when I get to see that.
Yeah. So as far as your acting, you're involved, and you have been involved with a ton of shows. What are some of the shows you've done up to this point?
I love being on the stage and acting. My favorite shows have been the Disney ones, I think. I was in, Tarzan was my first show, and that was my first love. It's such an athletic and wonderful show that has so much heart, and the cast was amazing.
Right.
And the production team, the directing was just awesome. But then I've done some wonderful shows at Hale Center Theater and Hale Center Theater Orem and a couple other theaters. I loved Little Mermaid. I loved Mary Poppins. I got to do this wonderful show called The Pirate Queen, which was just awesome, and learned how to do Irish dancing, which I'd never done before.
But you said yes.
You just got to do it. I just said yes.
Right.
And I'm about to start. Today is actually our first rehearsal for Phantom at Hale Center Theater.
Nice. We're going to see you. My family already has tickets.
Yes.
That's going to be great. What role are you playing in Phantom?
I'm playing a couple of roles. I'm Joseph Boucher until I die. And then after I'm dead, I hope I didn't give anything away. I hope everyone knows the story well enough to know that I die.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'll be a couple of other random characters. You'll see me kind of popping around the stage.
Cool. That's cool. That must take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right? The rehearsals and stuff. How much do you guys rehearse every day?
They'll rehearse every day, and I mean, it varies, but mostly you're there from around 7 to 10 in the afternoon.
Wow.
Which is awesome because it allows me to teach during the day, and then I can do my shows at night.
Yeah, that's. I assumed that you would be like occupied all day, and I was wondering how do you do that with teaching classes and being able to still do that? But it sounds like they're pretty amenable to.
Well, as a public school teacher, I'm usually done around 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
I can go to the gym, or if I'm choreographing for someone else's musical or my musical, that's usually 3 to 5, and then around 6:30 I head down to the theater and rehearse.
Wow, busy day.
Yeah.
Busy day. So as far as the acting goes, what would be your dream role? Like if you could do anything, what role would you like to do?
I have dream shows that I think would be amazing to be in.
But you're open to any role.
I'm open to any role, yeah. Because you never know going into a role what's going to happen. There's been some shows that I was just not excited about, but I did them because it's a job.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and you walk in and you come out on the other side, and you just never knew that it was going to be like that. And so when you limit yourself and be like, I'm only doing these roles or this kind of a show, or like this is what I'm going for, or I'm not going to be in the ensemble anymore, or I'm only going to play women over 40. I don't know. When you limit yourself, you're limiting the kind of experiences that you're allowing yourself to have.
Sure.
And so when people are like, well, what's your dream role? I'm like, well, you know, I'd love to play Bert someday in Mary Poppins. That would be an awesome role.
Sure.
There's just so many shows though, and each show has something unique to offer you. And I love dancing. If I can dance a lot, I love that. I love choral singing, so large ensemble numbers are amazing. And I love shows that have heart. They have like a message. When people leave the theater thinking, oh my gosh, I'm different now because I saw that show. And even if they can't identify how, but they feel different, they feel like they've changed, those are the kind of shows that I'm really drawn to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's evident in your teaching as well. You know, you had mentioned you like the roles that have heart, and one of the things that we talk about on the podcast frequently is this idea of emotional mastery and really being able to live every minute, being able to be present and be involved. And part of the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast and have you talk to our listeners was because you do that, you know. And the first moment I met you and watching you work and watching you teach, you do that. And I know it's a work in progress for all of us, and we get that. You know, there's nobody that is so great at living every minute that they can do it, you know, without fault. I mean, we have our faults, but one of the things that we loved so much about you when we met you was that you jumped in and you were in the moment and you were living every minute, and it's such an epitome of what we are all trying to attain. That's part of why we wanted you on the show. But what's your opinion about emotional mastery and kind of where we're at in this world today? I mean, you deal with a lot of young people, a lot of kids. Where do you think they're at these days? Where do you think these kids are in terms of emotional education and heading at least towards emotional mastery?
I think they're all over the place. There's not there's not a lot of guide. I mean, if they have a couple of wonderful adults in their lives that can kind of help them identify their emotions, kind of talk them through how they're feeling, or this is why you're feeling this way, then they're pretty lucky. Yeah. But a lot of kids don't have that because it's not really offered, and no one's written a book about it. I guess you are. But I see that a lot, and a lot of the kids that come into my classroom, I can see by the way they're walking into the classroom that they're either super psyched about something, or they're sad or angry or mad. I mean, you'll just see it. You'll see it all. Right. And a lot of times it just takes somebody to just identify the emotion and be like, you know what, you're feeling frustrated, and that's okay. Or you know, you're at a 2 today, you're sad, and maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not, but that's okay too. A lot of them just need permission to feel their feelings. And one thing that I try to tell my kids all the time when they don't get a solo, or when they are having a fight with their parents or their friends, or they're feeling really angry or frustrated, or they didn't make the musical, is that it's just a feeling. Let yourself feel it. It's going to be there for a second, but it's going to pass.
For
All feelings are temporary, good ones, bad ones, in between. And I tell my kids that it's just like water that flows through you.
Right.
So it's just like you got to let it, start at the top of your head and then just let it go all the way through your body and feel it and let yourself be sad and then realize it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, sure. I was listening to a podcast just the other day with a young lady, Lindsay Sterling, who plays the violin as well, and she was being interviewed, and she apparently was trying to be on America's Got Talent and got hammered, and they told her she wasn't any good at what she did, and she just got kind of destroyed. And they were asking her about that experience, and it kind of, what you said reminded me of it. She went away, and at first she was sad about it, but then ultimately she went back, watched what she did, and went, yeah, they were right. And then she doubled her efforts and went back to it. And I just love the idea, like you said, just you got to feel it. You got to let yourself feel it. And I think a lot of the problems that I see with the young kids these days is that they aren't taught that they do their emotions. They aren't taught that they're in charge. They're taught to be responsive instead of responsible.
Yeah.
And because of that, things happen. And instead of realizing that sad can come through them and they can feel it and be done with it, it has to come through them and they have to live with it for the rest of their life.
And hang on to it.
Yeah, and then they're depressed, and everybody's like, why are you depressed? And it's like, well, because I'm dealing with this sadness and this everything's going wrong. You're like, well, that was one moment. Like, it could be gone. And
find another moment.
Yeah, find another moment, right? I feel like, I don't know a huge amount about a lot of things. One of them is acting. Other than what I know from dance, and in dance we to some extent are actors, and we know how to do that, and we know how to teach that in dance. But there are different types of acting methods, and I remember when you came and worked with our group, you were mentioning little bits, and I remember hearing little bits like there's this type of acting, there's this type of acting. What are some of the different types of acting that there are out there, just so that we can get a little more educated about the subject?
And I might not be the most credible source for this, but I can share like what I know, because I haven't taken a ton of acting classes. Most of my training was geared, dance and singing, violin, orchestra, and then a lot of the acting that I got has just been on the stage doing it, and learning from my directors. Some people like to tie into an emotion they have, or an experience they have. They draw that up. And I've done that a few times in my life, where I've had an audition coming up and I've picked a song that maybe deals with in a very specific way, an issue that I have or am dealing with. And then when I'm singing or when I'm acting on stage and I'm saying the lines, I'm drawing on those real emotions and I'm actually feeling them because it's so close to me. And then people can see that, and then they can feel it as well. Now, some people don't like that because it can open up a whole bunch of emotional doors, and there's crying involved. And a lot of people are just they'll be very simple about it. They just say, you just act like you want this, or you just act like you. They don't overcomplicate it.
Right.
And so you've got those two extremes where people are just like, just act like you're angry, just act like you're sad. You don't have to actually feel the emotions. You just have to portray it. And then all the way to the side of the spectrum is you got people that are like, you have to be feeling it. You need to be angry. You need to feel depressed to portray that emotion. So people will fight both sides of that spectrum.
Sure.
And I don't really cling to one or the other.
Yeah. Do you have anybody in your story, as you've gotten to this point, that has really maybe influenced you the most about how you've learned to handle your emotions and be able to deal with life as you've gone through? Because as a dancer, as an artist, as a singer, musician, any of those things, we all have to deal with tons of rejection on a regular basis.
All the time.
So was there somebody that really stood out to you in your story that helped you deal with all those
There's
things?
been a lot of people that have kind of helped me, and we could do a whole other podcast of me just thanking all of the people in my life.
Sure.
But one thing that I tell my kids all the time is don't reject yourself. If you're going to go audition for something or try out for something, let the people on the board or the auditioners, let them reject you. because it's actually easier to deal with other people's rejection if you are okay with yourself.
Right.
So talking with a lot of my colleagues and my friends, they'll be like, well, I'm not going to audition for that show because I'm too old or I'm too young or this director doesn't like me or
Right.
I'll never make it anyway. And I just say,
Right.
don't make that decision for yourself. You need to do that.
Sure.
If you want it, go and audition for it. And if they tell you no, then audition for something else. And
Right.
it took me a long time to really figure that out. But I did have a lot of people that helped me kind of learn that. And my professor, Marilee Webb, she was very instrumental in helping me identify feelings and grow my skill set and change how I viewed and saw the world. And Kelly DeHaan, who I did my student teaching with, he was the type of person that was just like, anything can happen. I
Right.
thought that a choir teacher needed to be like this. And then after observing him in his classroom, I just realized I can build my program and I can do whatever I want with my program and I can be true to myself. And I've just had a lot of people like Kelly and Marilee, people at Health Center Theater, that really are totally open to doing anything. Casey, who does a lot of their tech there, Casey Udy, it's amazing what that guy can do on a stage. And people will throw these random ideas at him almost as a joke, and he'll be like, yeah, sure, we can put a dragon on stage. That's not a problem, We can fly in a house. This isn't a problem
Right.
either. He
Right.
can do anything on that stage.
Yeah.
And so I've been surrounded by these people almost my entire life who have helped me along my way with my journey.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from Will Smith is that there's a certain delusional quality that all successful people have to have. You have to believe something different than what's happened for the past 50 million years of history can happen. Mm-hmm. And I love that idea, that concept that's really what all of these successful people have in common. They all have this delusional quality that says, oh yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then they go sit down and go, I wonder how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, as long as you know what you want to do,
Right.
you build the plan later. Like have the vision, have the idea, the dream
Right.
first, and
Right.
then talk to people and then make a plan.
Yeah. Well, you're I mean this in the nicest way. You're so young, and you have so many experiences ahead of you, and who knows where your path is going to go. But as far as what your lighthouse is, like what are some of the things that you have ahead? I mean, you've done so much already. You've influenced so many young people, and I'm sure there are so many people, so many of those kids out there that'll say, yeah, you changed their life. I know that already. You've done so many things and accomplished what sounds like just a massive amount. But what's your lighthouse? What is it that you're shooting for? What are you trying to, what's guiding you?
Yeah,
towards
I'm
the
glad that
future?
you said that because lately I was thinking that I haven't done very much at all. I was just like, I've done nothing with my life. And I was kind of feeling down on myself, but this podcast has been cool because it's reminded me that, yeah, I've done a lot of cool things and I've met a lot of cool people.
Right.
I mean, my family is an anchor for me, and they
Sure.
are kind of my foundation. And family isn't just people that you're born with. I mean, it's not just your parents, your brothers and sisters. Your family is the people that you're with, you choose to be with, your community. And I have
Right.
a wonderful community family that is kind of my lighthouse, I think, and my support. But ultimately, I love the stage, and I want to be in the spotlight, and I'm going to
Sure.
get my degree. And then after I get my master's degree, I'm going to kind of reevaluate and be like, okay, now I've been teaching for 7 years, and I have a
Right.
master's degree, and I've been doing shows here. The world is my oyster. I mean,
Right,
I
sure.
could go anywhere, and I could do anything, and that's kind of exciting, but also kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have no limitations. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, I knew it was going to be a challenging one.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say. I was like, "Ooh, a lighthouse."
Well, I mean, I think it's good to have goals, but like Bruce Lee always says, a goal is just a target to aim at. It's not what you're doing.
I have a vision in my head. I have a picture of something that I guess is kind of my lighthouse, and it's me standing in the center of the stage, only one on the stage, with a spotlight on me, and I'm just singing my torch song.
Nice.
And I think that's kind of what I'm going for. It's just sometime in my life, I just want to be the only person, on that center column with that spotlight. No ensemble, just me just singing my torch song. And that's
Nice.
I think that's what I want. And I think about that a lot. And I don't know if it's in a specific show or a concert, but
Right.
I think that's kind of what I'm going for.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to have something like that, something that you look at and that you can see clearly in your mind and know where you're headed. And I think for dancers and musicians and artists, it's all, maybe it's slightly different. And so I guess what I challenge all of the listeners out there to do is really think about that, not because that's like the only thing, but like, what is it that's getting you to get up and work hard and put the time in and the effort and make those steps along the way, which kind of leads me to another question, which is, how have you dealt with all of that rejection through the years, and maybe some of what people would call failures?
Yeah.
I've talked with you enough, and we've learned enough about each other that I know you probably wouldn't call it a failure, but for most people's general language, that's what they say. Well, how did you deal with the failure?
If you show up and if you do your best, it's not a failure. And I have not made more shows than I have made, because I audition for almost all the shows that I have the opportunity to audition for, and I don't make a lot of shows. Mm-hmm. But if I show up and if I do my best, there's no failure in that. Yeah. It just means that you weren't right for that show at that time with those people at that theater company.
Yeah.
So being there and showing up is not the failure. The times that I have taken myself out of the race, those are the times when I felt like I've really failed.
Yeah.
But I don't think I got it until I was probably 26 years old, that just because somebody else is doing amazing doesn't mean that I'm failing. And it really took me, and people told me that my whole life. Like, I had that pounded into me, but I didn't really believe it until like late into my 20s, that if somebody else makes the show over me, even if I think that I'm better at it, that doesn't have any negative repercussions for me, or doesn't put me in a negative light at all. And you want people around you to succeed, because if people are making shows and if they're winning dance competitions and if they're being successful in singing and dancing, then that means the industry is thriving and doing great, which is a win for you. And it's only going to lead to more opportunities for you in the future. Yeah. And you audition more, and the more you audition, the better you get at it. The more you put yourself out there, the less scary it is. And when people see that you're comfortable with that, they're more likely to cast you. So every failure, I'm doing air quotes, every failure that you have is really just serving you. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to learn a lot more from those experiences than you are if you just, I guess, won everything every time.
Yeah, sure. Seems that way.
And I do get sad, and I'll have, my friends will be, they'll say, oh man, if you don't make the show, you're going to be so depressed for 3 days. And I go, yeah, I am. I'm going to be like super sad because I really wanted this show or this role or this opportunity. And then I'm really sad for a while. And then while I'm crying, I'm preparing my next audition piece and I'm getting ready for my next audition. You just have to keep going, and you have to enjoy the process. And it's all part of the process.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so they can see you coming up in Phantom, in the Hale Center. That's in Sandy.
Yeah, the Hale Center.
And when does that show start?
That show starts the end of September.
Okay, so not that long away. You guys don't have that much time to rehearse and get ready. They sure pump out those shows fast. That's quite the team they must have.
They're good at it. They know what they're doing over there.
It's pretty impressive. I've been to a number of shows now at the new theater. It's beautiful.
It's one of the most amazing theaters, the facility to be able to perform there. It's just wonderful. It's like, I can't really talk about it because it's so overwhelming, but being able to do the things that I've done on that stage. I mentioned I'm an acrobat and I do aerial arts, and I've been able to do my aerial routines on that stage, and just looking up into the catwalks and the grid above there, and how they can fly 8 people on that stage or more if they wanted to at any given time.
Holy cow.
And then it goes down into the basement, and the slides over the stage. It's fascinating, and it's wonderful, and it all helps tell these magnificent stories.
The part that's so cool is that they all those guys that are doing the sets and taking care of all that background, they do it so seamlessly without you knowing it's going on, and things happen and you're like, gosh, how did that happen? And that's saying a lot. I've been in a lot of shows, and I've been in a lot of the background and learned a lot about the back, and one of my pet peeves is when I can see what's going on, because it ruins the story.
It takes you out of the moment for a minute.
And they do such a great job of that. Everybody should go see you. at the show, and I think that'll be a great experience. But you also have your school and your choir, and I'm sure that if people wanted to contribute or participate in your program there, how would they do that?
Definitely. I mean, they can call Elk Ridge Middle School in South Jordan.
Cool.
They can ask to speak with me.
Cool.
They can also email me at keith.goodrich@jordandistrict.org.
Cool.
I love meeting people, and opportunities that come my way are awesome.
Nice.
I love that, and I have a fantastic support staff over at that school and a really, really wonderful choir.
Cool. Well, I know, from experience, you are very willing to say yes if you can do some teaching, and you did some acting classes for us. It was amazing, so I can attest to the fact that we had such a great experience, and I know if there's any of you out there that would love him to come teach, hopefully you maybe you could get in touch with him, and he might have some time, but he sounds like he's hugely busy. But please reach out to him and talk with him, because he really is an excellent teacher. So if you're interested, please contact him. We'll throw some of your contact information in the podcast, just like an email or something,
Sure.
that they can reach you at in case anybody wants to get a hold of you or let you know. But we're so grateful you came and talked with us today. Thanks for being on the podcast. We can't thank you enough.
No problem. It was fun.
Anything before we go? Anything that you want to put out there? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of young people listening to the show. There's a lot of people that are just trying to find their way in their life and being in developing their personal emotional states and getting their life in order. Anything you want to tell them before we go?
Just show up.
If
you don't show up, you rob
like
yourself of all of these experiences. I mean, when people invite you places, or when you have the opportunity to go and do things, if it's new or if it's old, if you're not there, you're not gonna gain from it. So I like to tell people, just be there, just show up, be in the room, and then once you're there, be present. Participate with the people, make eye contact, talk, contribute. Showing up is like 90% of the battle, and once you're there, you've kind of taken away all those limitations.
Nice. Well, there you go. Well, guys, we appreciate you joining us on the podcast today, and don't forget to show up. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Want more Magic for Life? If so, then reserve your copy of my new book. Get your copy at everyminutebook.com. Inside this book, you'll find the secrets to attaining the next level of performance in anything you do. Learn the secrets behind emotional mastery that'll start you on your new journey of being a lifer. Whether you're an athlete, a business professional, or an artist, this book will change your life forever. Get your copy reserved today.